What's up and welcome to Champions of Lore, a show about all the kick-ass stories behind some of Idle Champions' coolest campaigns and characters. Every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games or later on your favorite podcast service, Dave Walters and Erin M Evans talk about all the Idle Champions lore that's fun to know about. If you're here with us live in the chat, you can leave a question that I, Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show. And I need to brag real quick because I totally forgot to bring up my script for that and just did that off the top of my head and I can't believe I remembered it. Who are you lovely people for everyone who doesn't know?
And stay focused during the Forbidden Dance too.
Yeah. I like as soon as I hit live, I went, you don't have the script up.
That's nice. That's a good feeling.
Consistency is key.
Oh boy.
Oh, I'm Erin M. Evans. I'm the author of the Brimstone Angels saga, a 6-book series set in the Forgotten Realms that featured two of your favorite tiefling champions, Frida and Havilar. I also play Cecilia on Dungeon Scrawlers every Wednesday.
Dave Walters, I say words about things. I'm the stunt Erin M. Evans, and you can find me wherever fine streaming content can be located, and I do a little bit of DMing that might be relevant to today's topic.
Could be. It might either be relevant to today's topic or to the awards going on TTRPG gifts.
Y'all know what to do. That's all I have to say.
They're being announced today. Will Dave be the most evil DM?
I mean, yes. The question is whether or not they know it. You know, whether or not enough people voted to say so. That's out of my hands. Whether or not it's objectively true.
Love it.
Yeah.
But yes, we are here to talk about Ravenloft. There we go.
You're at the wrong schedule, you guys. I'm unprepared for Ravenloft. Fortunately, B-Dave is very on top of it, because I thought today was elves. So.
You know, there's elves in Ravenloft. We'll work with it.
Yeah, there are. That is actually relevant.
With insightful questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So B-Dave, where do you want to start with Ravenloft?
I'm like, oh no.
Oh no, what's this?
Oh, what's this? Is that the special edition of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft? Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, it is.
Oh no.
Thank you, Watsy. Thou hast blessed me. Yeah. And I knocked over a whole bunch of stuff during my seamless reveal there.
Real quick, just want to shout this out for chat. We do know that there is a problem with the code. It is being fixed behind the scenes. Hold on real quick. We'll get that ready for you.
We'll get Moir codes. Yes.
Moir codes.
So for those of you that don't know, I am more than just a pretty face and Erin and Trevor's sidekick. I'm the Dungeon Master of the Black Dice Society, which is an official WotC Ravenloft stream that airs Thursday at 4 p.m. on D&D Twitch and YouTube. And I was fortunate to do this because they hit me up like 6 months ago. It was like December. Oh, and we were
the most horrifying of months.
Yes, the darkest of months. Yes, it is. The longest day of the year is in December, so it's not the darkest month of the year.
Just saying.
And we were kind of going back and forth about what we were going to do or what I was going to do after A Dark and Wish wrapped up. And I pitched them a couple of things and we were back and forth. And then they were like, hey, do you want to do a Ravenloft show? Because word is you've done some vampire. And I was like, I've literally run 500 sessions of Vampire. I have probably done more V5 than anyone else alive. So yeah, I do know a little bit about horror and a little bit about D&D. Maybe I'm your dude. So Ravenloft is the horror setting of Dungeons and Dragons, and I have to be careful here because I can't give away too much of what's in the book. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft comes out in 8 days on the 18th.
My body is ready.
It's so good. This book is so
All
good.
The books I've seen look really awesome.
Well, you know, it's funny because I originally conceived of the show is almost a deluxe Monster of the Week thing where we'd go like 4-episode arcs based on what I knew, where it's kind of like, all right, well, they'll go to this place and there's a mummy and they'll deal with the mummy and they'll leave, you know, and then they'll go to this place and there'll be a vampire and they'll deal with the vampire and they'll leave.
I'm now picturing all of the characters from Black Dice Society drawn as Scooby-Doo characters.
Rightly so.
They're just
rightly so. And we found out that the Mystery Machine is like a haunted lightning rail. So that's we've hit all of the notes. So the book, I got my hands on the book and I realized there is so much for each domain that I would be doing them a disservice to be like, we'll be in and out in 4 episodes. It's insane how much detail is in this book. So for those of you that don't know what Ravenloft is, it's in the Shadowfell. The first domain of dread was Barovia. So if you've played Curse of Strahd, that is set in Ravenloft. And there is a section of the Shadowfell that non-specific powers known as the Dark Powers control. And it is essentially a prison. And inside of them, there are individual domains, and each domain has a Dark Lord. And Strahd is one of those Dark Lords. And each of their domains is a reflection of them. It is like a cruel parody of everything they thought they wanted, they got, but it's terrible. And that's what the Dread domains are, and that's what the Dark Lords are. And, you know, why the Dark Powers are doing this, what they really are, is all very much remains to be seen. And each domain is separated by the mist, which is just a quasi impenetrable barrier that separates one domain from the other. And the Dark Lords, for the most part, control literally everything in their domain, except for some, like, sadly ironic thing they have no control over, because again, it's actually a prison. So it's kind of like a deluxe hell, basically, I suppose, is what each domain is. And
deluxe hell. Sorry.
it's kind of what it is, though, you know. In each domain tells you something about the Dark Lord. If you understand the domain, you understand something about the Dark Lord that rules over it. And there are specific conditions under which you can enter a dread domain, and there are specific conditions under which you can depart a dread domain. And one of the things I told the cast, the Black Dice Society, is I was like, check this out. You guys will go somewhere. I'll set it up for you. If you guys are like, this is terrible, we're leaving, and you can fulfill the leave condition, you can go. Like, I'm not gonna force you to stay there, but that's the challenge of it. Which, again, if you've played Curse of Strahd, that's part of it. You can't just turn around and leave, because Strahd's like, maybe don't, and then you're kind of stuck, and you have to do what you do.
Yep.
So, well, that's the first bit. Let me stop monologuing long enough for you guys to.
But you're the
I'm
expert.
entertained as hell. I don't know about.
know.
Well, you know
Like,
what's
you're
funny?
summing it up pretty good.
Well, here's the crazy thing. Believe it or not, I do not consider myself a Ravenloft expert. I played back in the day, but it was not, you know, it was not my setting of choice. I played it, but it wasn't like my thing, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny is, in the process of doing the Black Dice Society, is I found all the fans that Ravenloft is their jam. Oh, I'm sorry. I know this is massively unprofessional. Have to take this call. You guys stall for me.
Okay, so
All right, you want to know a Ravenloft fun fact?
let's hear it.
The actually the first novel that I was requested to write was a Ravenloft novel, but then that got canceled.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah. I didn't actually get to the point of signing a contract, because what had happened was there was sort of a Ravenloft relaunch. We republished some of the original Ravenloft novels. I think they were it might have been like Ravenloft Dominion or something, because one of the most well-known vampire novelists out there, Laurel K. Hamilton, one of her first books was actually a Ravenloft novel.
So I actually just found out about this. My wife loves Laurel K. Hamilton, but
Yeah.
also loves Tanya Huff, who also did a Ravenloft novel. And yeah, we just found out about these. People listen, I highly recommend go check out some of the older Ravenloft books, because they're a trip.
Those also, just as a small book geekery, those reprints had really banging covers. I liked them a lot. There was a little hiccup, though, for just as book trivia goes. Booksellers didn't know where to shelve them. So they were shelving them like they were new Laurel K. Hamilton books, and people were like, what is this? I was like, no, that's different. Or then they were sticking them in general fiction, and people weren't finding them. It's like, you need to put those next to the other D&D books.
Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't be against an Anita Blake novel in Ravenloft.
Right? Like, hey, that's some fanfic that would be extremely interesting to read.
Apologies.
It's okay. Everything good?
Yeah. A very time-dependent thing that I had to do. Yeah,
That's fair.
Sorry.
We just turned this into writing about dragons and shit for a moment, while relating it to Ravenloft.
Well,
So there was a second set of Ravenloft novels that came out that were new ones, and these were going to be historical fantasy, so they were anchored to points in real history, and created new domains of dread that hadn't been seen before. The only problem was those previous set of books did not do well because they weren't they were shelved weird, and people couldn't find them, and people who found them were confused. So then those things that said Ravenloft didn't look good to booksellers, so they ended up being canceled before I could write my cool Egyptian mythology themed Domain of Dread, which it looks like there is a new one, and I don't want to hear about how good it is because mine would have been great.
I was about to say, I was like, have I got a Domain of Dread for you?
I'm sure it's wonderful. The wound still sings a little. And if I find out they took my stuff, I will understand because that's how it works. But also, ooh.
I'm intimately familiar with that feel. Slight detour because it wouldn't be us if we
tangents
didn't have that
everywhere.
So in the early, I guess, mid 2000s, I was working with a guy named Danny Mickey, who is a famous inker for Marvel Comics. Freaking Tracer, Danny. I hope somebody clips this and show it to him. And he had his own project that he was working on called Samurai Koimando, which were they were samurai fish. It was similar to the Ninja Turtles, but there was 3 of them and they were fish. And so I came up with this whole different world and mythos. And the idea I came up with is they lived in this elemental kingdom. And they were kind of like the Jedi. They were going around. They were the peacekeeping force of these elemental kingdoms. And we had a pitch meeting with Tokyo Pop, and they pooped all over the idea. And they were like, elemental kingdoms are dumb. That's so hackneyed, blah, 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 blah. And they still made him an offer. I think they were just trying to lowball him and didn't expect him to walk away. Like 6 months after that, Avatar: The Last Airbender comes out. And I didn't watch Avatar for a very long time for that same the pain that you feel, that I was like, it's got nothing to do with it, but just in here, yeah, it was a minute before, so I know that feel.
But
now
I have reached the point where I can say I do think it's really cool that they did do that, because I think there are awesome opportunities there.
I mean, I reached a point that I really fell in love with Avatar. So, we grow as people, Aaron. We grow as people. So, I will say Jason Carl is a big fan of Ravenloft also, and already owned I Strahd. That's why I tapped him to play Strahd. And he went back and reread it ahead of playing Strahd for us, which is like him right there. Right there. With a Strahd. And there's Aslan. He's another Dark Lord of Darkon. There we go. Well, what I was saying is that the process of doing the Black Dice Society has brought the OGs out of the woodwork of people that love Ravenloft. And a lot has changed. And again, I have to be vague. If you've watched the show, the Black Dice Society, I hope you have. It's objectively wonderful. The first 6 episodes are up on YouTube. A lot of the names and places and locations, the only hints I can give you is what I've said about those names and places and locations. And I've had a lot of people that are like, so does that mean this? And I'm like, no, have to wait and see when the book comes out.
Pre-order Van Richten's guide, apparently.
There it is. You can find out 8 days, but from a tonal perspective, where Ravenloft is different, I will give you a tiny sneak peek of the book. Then I'll give you some of the bullet points that the book says that are important points of Ravenloft, which I literally flipped right to because I'm a professional.
So many screenshots just happened right there.
Really, so extreme close up.
Enhance.
Honestly, I was a little sad when they posted the table of contents but I realized they have a book to hype, which again, ostensibly is kind of our purpose. I was kind of like, don't tell them nothing. But there's 7 secrets of Ravenloft. The first one is Ravenloft is not a world. The domains exist as a subsection of the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
So the campaign setting is kind of a little bubble. And inside of those bubbles are smaller bubbles, but they're all like dirty bubbles. Ravenloft is a series of dirty bubbles. That's what I want you to take from it. Thank you for coming with me.
Can you change the title of this episode?
I really
Is that possible? Because I feel like it needs to happen. A series of dirty bubbles.
A series of dirty bubbles.
I mean, but think about it. Where's the lie, though?
I would like to not think about it, please.
Where's the lie? The second point is the dark powers control all. Like I said, it's by what mechanism and to what end the domains exist is not clear. But something has put everyone there and does not let them leave. You know, Strahd is trapped. As Aslan is trapped. Aslan has realized the location of the fences, but is still trapped. All of them are.
He's the velociraptors testing them.
He is literally the puppet that can see the strings. Now is what Aslan is now. The domains imprisoned Dark Lords. Like I said, they're all trapped there because they were all awful people in life. You know, they did something terrible. Strahd killed his brother. And ultimately because he was lusting after his brother's wife, and she ultimately committed suicide to get away from him. You know, like those Aslan killed his own son, and countless people. So they're all bad people in life, which is what causes them. They don't necessarily have to die to become Dark Lords, though. In fact, I don't think any. Well, I won't say any of them because some of them are literally ghosts. But for the most part, nothing good there.
They're just floating there like, what are you talking about? I've always been like this.
It's true. Yeah. Again, the mists encompass all. Like I said, they're the walls and the boundaries in between these domains, which that was a little more permeable in previous editions. Like, you know, Falkovnia actively went to war with Darkhan. Like, they were aware of the fact, like, well, right over there is another place and we can go and interact with that place.
That was a question that I had because like during Black Die Society, like, you know, Mark's character oh my God,
Uriah.
Brother Uriah.
Uriah.
He
Thank
makes
you guys for watching the show.
Well, I mean, I kind of listen to it every week.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm behind because I have like no time for myself these days.
I understand.
For that vacation, but so don't spoil things from.
Oh no. This is not spoilers. It's not spoilers. Also, I like how you're like, I appreciate you watching the show. I'm like, I'm literally your editor. But yeah, like I had questions about, because he's like, oh, I'm from Darkon, but he's making references to other domains, and I wasn't aware that they had any knowledge of them. It kind of felt like some people could just go through it.
So it's definitely a timey-wimey thing. There is an entire class of people that I don't want to mispronounce their names, so I'm going to reread it, because like I said, I know we got our OGs here. Where are my homies?
See, that should be a TTRPG gift right there. It's just looking at a D&D book. Where's my homies?
Where's my homies? Yeah. Oh shoot. Oh, the Vistani. That's what I was looking for. The Vistani. Yeah. They're in Curse of Strahd also.
Yeah.
There's a class of people that they can freely traverse the mists. And there is a dark gift that you can get that allows you to freely traverse the mists. And there are a couple of ways that you can get from one to the other, but they're kind of like a key and a lock. Whereas in the past, that was easier to accomplish. Now it's not so much. They are more siloed. Like Falkovnia doesn't have a border with Darkon. The mist, surround Falkovnia, for instance.
That is interesting though about the Vistani, because I thought that it was just that they could only freely move between Barovia, but they can move between all the domains.
Yeah, they can go anywhere.
That's fascinating.
Point number 5, a personal favorite: nowhere is safe. As I've tried to hammer home every time they're like, this seems nice, let's sleep here. I'm like, maybe don't. But okay. But also I'm like, you could leave and sleep somewhere else. Not gonna help you.
Same smiles coming from the DM.
Yep. Heroes confront horrors, which is so. One of the genius bits of this book also is they have really worked to encapture different kinds of horror in this. Curse of Strahd is very Gothic horror, which Gothic horror is more tension, more dread, more ambiance, more. It's not really slasher stuff like Bram Stoker's Dracula, for instance. I mean, Dracula does roll up some people, but for the most part, he's not kicking in doors, killing people. It's the fact that you're like, oh, he's out there somewhere. Yeah. Oh no, he's here, type thing. It's the buildup is the source of the horror. This now with this version of Ravenloft, there's disaster horror, there's Gothic horror, there's body horror, there's
You can get that Cronenberg stuff right out of here. Thank you.
No, literally, body horror, cosmic horror, dark fantasy, folk horror, ghost stories, and gothic horror, and then some other things. I don't want to say too much because then I'm gonna have like red lasers from Watsy appearing. But this is expressly designed now to tell different kinds of stories and experience different kinds of things, pending the domain you're going into. Which is what I'm trying to do with the show also, that you go one place and it's like this, but you go to another place and it's a very different experience. Like Falkovnia is disaster horror. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's zombies, but the zombies are the ceaseless tidal wave that have ruined everything. And now, like, how do you deal with that in the interim, for instance? And the last one is Only Fear is Certain, which I love also, Yeah, it's I think more than anything also, and this is something that I have nailed home, is your characters aren't heroes because the myths don't trap good people, like
that's interesting.
Yeah, the myths don't trap good people. Like with Curse of Strahd, you can get blown in and then kind of leave again, but for the most part, if the myths come for you, there's a reason, so there you go.
I mean that says a lot about what champions to bring with you into the mist there, viewers.
Indeed it does. Indeed it does.
Bailoff leading the charge.
Yeah. I mean, it is yo dog yo. Like that's we need.
Love the idea of Bailoff.
See, I do too.
Cameo. I do too because about a Bailoff cameo in the Mist.
Because like 100%, like the Mist would be like, "You've done much evil things. You are now here in the dread domains," and he's just like, "Oh look, new things to take to the pits."
Right.
I need to. You know what? I will talk to Mark about this.
This has become a brainstorming session.
I will talk to Mark about designing a dread domain for Bailoff, because that's one of the things that is in the book now, is the ability to design your own dread domain.
Yeah, and that one.
Funny.
Oh, good.
I feel like Bailoff's domain would be this spectacle of ceaseless battle, in which he could rig no fights and collect no profits. I think that's
yeah. Well, because that's the thing. Like you're talking about, like it's their own like deluxe hell, which is still just a great collection of words. But like that
a series of dirty bubbles, inside of which are deluxe hells. Yes.
But essentially, like that still fits into like the gothicness of it, because like big thing with Poe was character irony, and that's essentially what I mean, not to turn this into writing about dragons and shit again, but like that's essentially what these the Dark Lords have, is their whole domain is a character irony about them, where it's just like that you can learn a lot about them from it, but they probably don't see it. They just hate it there.
Yeah. Well, it's both Strahd and Aslan wanted a land to rule over for different reasons. Strahd theoretically did it for love, and he keeps gaining and losing it again. Like he wants Tatiana and can never have her. He has everything he wanted but that. And then Strahd deeply resents the citizens of Barovia because he's like, you guys all suck.
But like they kind of do.
which that's another interesting point about the domains is, the Dark Lords are many gods, up to and including they can manifest people. So you have an interesting mix of almost holodeck simulations and actual flesh and blood people that really do live there. And that kind of varies from place to place, and they can be interspersed. It's whatever that vision requires. In Falkovnia, she wanted a land to conquer and rule over. It's like, okay, yeah, but it's like you're gonna be at war kind of forever. In Darkon, he wanted to rule a kingdom, and again, Aslan also, being the puppet who can see the strings, is deeply resentful of it. That he's like, okay, I have this kingdom, but what difference does it make?
I'm in charge.
Yeah, I'm in charge.
I love the bunny ears.
Yeah, but I'm not though. Yeah, and then is resentful of it. And there's definitely a spectrum too of the level of self-awareness in the Dark Lords. Like there's one. There's a domain that's a grand masquerade ball, like almost like Alice in Wonderland-ish, that it's this eternal party. There's one
Sounds
that,
awesome.
that they're all ghosts. There's one that's the Egyptian one. There's the carnival, as we saw in the show. The carnival's unique in that the carnival can move. The carnival can go to other domains, and the carnival can actually leave Ravenloft, the only one that can.
See, what's wild for me about that, when you did that one, and I learned that was like part of the domain stuff, I did a dark carnival in my Strahd campaign because I hit I don't know what to do here, so I'm going to throw my own stuff in. But I had it that the Shatterkai actually ran it.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
So,
Shatterkai Carnival.
and it was straight up like it was what you think it is. Like there was just like because also the big thing about Barovia is a mass majority of the people there do not have souls. They just exist. And so I had all these soulless Barovians lining up to see like carnival events where it's like some dude getting flayed. There was a petting zoo of dead animals and a little Barovian girl just going, "Good goat."
So here's the wild thing.
That's
The
upsetting.
carnival, the domain, was founded by the Shatterkai.
Oh, yes!
You were on the right wavelength. You were on the right wavelength. You know?
Oh, I'm so proud of myself.
You can see when the book comes out why they're not there now, but it's you were correct. So another thing that is interesting to me about this is there's Ezra, the goddess of the mist, right? And there is a belief among some that the goddess Ezra is actually the Raven Queen. That that is basically her, because this is still the Shadowfell. So theoretically, she still rules over this, but not really though. So I kind of like the idea of the Raven Queen is every once in a while just poke her head like, what is this?
She's that gif of George Clooney looking up over the grass.
Yeah, like what are you doing in here? You know?
It's like her back bedroom that she forgets about. And periodically you're like, oh yeah, I have this space.
Yeah, well, it's no wonder she forgets about it. She's got Orcus out on her lawn all day playing freaking 80s music. I mean,
that's it. You know what I mean? Like she wants to go like clear out those shadowy squatters over there. You know? And he's like, in your eyes is dread domains. Yeah.
Oh my God.
You all know we were going to make it there. Y'all knew we were going to make it
We
there.
always do.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is when you are in the domains, the Dark Lords can intercept the prayers to gods, which I love. If you think you're like, oh, Tyr, help me out, Strahd's like, maybe you should just die.
I guess I'll die then. Yeah, I kind of wish that I know.
Can they just block them, or can they subvert them?
Well, the implication is they can subvert them. I would personally, it would be a cruel thing, but I would love it if they could block them. You know what I mean? Like the cleric prays for spells and nothing happens.
See, I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be more fun if the Dark Lord played telephone, where like it heard what the cleric did, and then it goes back to the guy and goes, "You suck." Why don't I have any spells today?
Yep.
I do genuinely enjoy the idea that like you pray for help, right? You go for a divine intervention, and then suddenly here's the thing that will help you, and you're like, is it, or did the Dark Lord hand me something that's going to lead to my doom?
It's a super happy fun box. Open it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's okay. From the perspective of sort of story creator DM, that sounds amazing. As a player, I'm like, God, my life is stressful enough. Does my game have to be that stressful?
Hey, welcome to the horror. Welcome to the horror.
So then it's sort of that like you play through it and you experience it, and then you feel okay with it, right? There's that aspect of horror where it's like you watch the terrible thing happen, and then you're like, okay, it happened, and then the next thing.
It's cathartic, but the challenge is, and I will tell you, as somebody that is now telling a long-term Ravenloft story, is the challenge is you don't really win. You know, like some of the domains have certain conditions under which you can make a meaningful difference. You know, like there is a way to free Barovia. Like there's some other ones, like there's ways to actually help these people. But for the most part, they're kind of on a loop. You know? Like that
was kind of the problem that I had with my game, because they defeated Strahd. They, you know, the sun rose in Barovia again. But my whole thing was, I'm just like, yeah, but like, it's not like it's back in the Forgotten Realms. Like, it's still there. And so, like, yeah, I did kind of have this like eventually Groundhog Day thing where it's like, nope, it's coming back around. It's happy, fun, dark time.
Yep. You don't stop it. You
restructure it.
Yep. Yep.
I was gonna say, just as this is sort of a sidebar, because just as a full disclosure, I don't enjoy horror. I do, but I'm a huge scaredy cat. Like get the image in my head and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm 100%. I couldn't finish Stranger Things because I had a newborn at the time, and so I was waking up to nurse him in the middle of the night, and I was 100% sure like the wall was going to do this.
Oh no!
And I would just like, no, tired brain can't handle. However, there's this podcast that I listened to that I really enjoyed called the Scaredy Cats Horror Show, wherein a guy, there's two guys, and one of them loves horror and one of them hates it and is like me, a huge scaredy cat. But what they do is he wants to be able to watch things, right? Because you hear about really amazing horror like Get Out, or Midsummer, or Hereditary. Like people are like, oh, this is actually really like good on many levels. And you want to be able to participate in the cultural zeitgeist, and you're like, I can't though, because it might be too scary. So he watches these things, and they have guests, and they talk about what they like about horror. So if you're like me, and you're like, I want to like this, but it's also scary, I really enjoyed that for the purposes of sort of thinking about what it is about the experience of horror, that isn't just like, I'm really scared of everything.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, not only is horror not my jam either, although I've probably written more horror than any other genre.
Same.
Everyone I know that has any standing in the horror arena doesn't like it. I know horror super fans. Yeah. They don't make it. The ones really that make it are all like, not my thing either, but I just happen to be good at it.
I honestly think it helps if you're like anxious and inclined to be terrified of things to know how to scare people a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think anything I write is terribly scary. My mother-in-law refuses to read it because my books scare the crap out of her.
I mean, that's tension. that is dread. And again, there are different kinds of horror. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's and all things being equal, horror is about what you don't see. That's the difference between the first Alien movie and the second Alien movie. Even though the second Alien movie is still great, it's more of an action movie. The first one is a straight up horror movie.
Yeah, no, it was the pitch meeting was like a haunted house in space, like, and it nails that.
Yep, 100%.
I do have to call an audio note out just a little bit ago for audio listeners who couldn't see it. When Aaron said, I'm not good with horror, B Dave laughed and had the smile on his face like, I must get her in a game.
I mean, I'm sorry. Was my face betraying my true intentions?
I think I may have, I don't remember if I said this here or if I said it on Talking About Dragons, but when I can, I am a good reader for people who are trying to be funny because I laugh very loudly, and I'll tell you I laugh very loudly.
It's the best part of the week.
I am also a good reader for horror because I scream. I
don't know if a book's ever made me scream.
Yeah.
So a story I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, is oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank. Who wrote The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
Do you mean
Stevenson?
Yeah, Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yeah.
Yes. Apparently he wrote it.
Get me on your trivia team. Sorry.
Gave it to his wife to read it, and it absolutely terrified her so much he felt guilty and threw it in the fire.
Oh, no!
And then was like, "What have I done?" And sat down and rewrote it. And by his own admission, he's like, "It wasn't as good as the first one." Like he could never quite recapture what. Yeah.
My soul.
That's when you're like, good.
Right? That's the idea. It's a scary story.
Yep.
Feel bad you made your wife scared, but like...
Yep. But you got to cash in on this. Yeah. So apparently Diet Dr. Jekyll is still, a landmark now. But
see, when I had people read my horror stuff, they were like, that was absolutely terrifying. I didn't want to finish it because I was so scared. I was like, really? I didn't think it was that bad.
Nothing you make ever is gonna, because I mean, it's never gonna feel as scary, and it's not going to feel as upsetting or effective
Yeah.
or sweeping because
you-
it's all in your head and you know every bit of it.
Well, and I think that's kind of the same thing with running a Ravenloft game is trying to get that horror, because you're the person working at the yearly haunted house, which I have done and is an absolute blast, and I would highly recommend doing it. Nothing is better than scaring someone at least half a foot taller than you dressed as a clown. But yeah, it's trying to know what is going to scare them. But I did see one recently that was really good. It's like you should be looking to see what scares the character and not the player.
That's a good point.
And that is kind of a big thing in Ravenloft, is like, not only do you have to like kind of read your friends, but you have to read your friends' characters.
Yeah, well, a few things happen. That of course, I think whenever you're doing anything that is horror based, your lines and veils, your consent is the most important. I mean, you always need that, but you especially need it when you're going to try and push buttons.
Like, legitimately, call out, like, I applaud you for every episode talking about that, and that getting no really, because the fact that you do that every episode is showing people that that's something that needs to be done, and that's why I really appreciate that you do it every episode at the beginning.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, and I do know their things, and it ranges all the way from some people had a fairly itemized list of the things that they couldn't do, and at least one person was like, I'm here for it. The weirder, the better. Do anything. Which I'm that person.
Yeah.
Like when we did We're Alive Frontier, and Ivan was like, I want to talk about your boundaries and stuff. Like, I remember Anjali and I both were like, we don't have any. Do it. You know.
Goodness.
Well, I mean, not counting the like general things that like no one should put on. You know, I mean, other than that, I got nothing. The other thing that is a challenge is, I've gone on record. The reason why I believe people play role-playing games, why they will never truly be eclipsed by video games, is you play to be at cause in something, to have your action or your inaction matter, to have an impact in the narrative. Which is why, even though I've played 10 Candles, and I mean, I liked it fine. I liked it in the same way you take milk out and you sniff and go, oh, this is terrible, sniff it, to the next person. That's how I liked 10 Candles. But I mean, the futility of knowing everyone is going to die, for me, makes it pointless. And I get the thesis being, knowing the ending is assured, you're free to do anything. Yeah. You're free to just go all in. That's my own feeling on the matter, that I'm kind of like,
well, see, the thing is, like, I feel like that is almost to the right spot. So one step too far, because like there's the Alfred Hitchcock thing of like the best way to scare an audience is by showing them there's a bomb under the table that everyone's talking around that they don't know about. And I've always wanted to try and get that with players, where I'm like, you have to separate player knowledge from character knowledge. You're screwed, but you can't do anything about it.
What I haven't played it this way, but I heard someone propose one survivor. Because when you know there's one survivor.
Oh, that's wild.
That alone changes all of it, you know. But in D&D, in particular, you're playing a hero, and D&D very much has a presumption of success. And I explained it to the cast of this, that I'm like, in D&D, you come around the corner, you see an ogre, you can take the ogre. Like, the dice may betray you. TPKs are a thing, but for the most part, you are faced with challenges that you reasonably can overcome. Ravenloft's not like that. If you come at Strahd wrong, you will get worked, because there are overwhelming elemental powers that you deal with. So you have to juggle this idea of the existential dread and, quite frankly, hopelessness and always being on your heels, with the fact that it's still D&D and people are still going to want to throw fireballs on occasion.
Yes.
The rogue still got to backstab something, and that's an interesting juggle, because for the, in most horror, like, I've written a bunch of creature movies. I wrote a movie for a very well-known horror franchise, but I ghost wrote it, so I can't tell you which one. But you get into stuff like Friday the 13th. For the most part, Jason is relentless, and there's the one dude that might stand and fight him, but that dude's gonna get killed. But then, you know, or Terminator's an even better example. The Terminator's unstoppable till the last second when she finally catches it in the press. You know, you're terminated, sucker. Which is one of the greatest finales of all time, by the way, when his hand is like right there and she's fumbling for the that's still horror though. But it's action horror.
See, that's the thing. Like you're just saying, like with Alien and Aliens, it's very much saying like first Terminator movie is a horror film. Second Terminator movie is an action film.
It's an action film. Yeah, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of tonally from Ravenloft, hanging around those 2 points is kind of where you're trying to be, you know? In the sense that you want those moments of dread of something going bump in the night, but you still get to have Space Marines with explosive ammunition, you know? Like, what are we supposed to use? Harsh language? Yeah, you are. Yeah. So that's the juggle of it.
Before we pass over to chat, any last things you all want to bring up about the old Ravenloft and Dread domains?
I mean, I just soaked up a lot of oxygen, so yeah.
Like I said, I didn't prepare very well, so I've enjoyed this tour of Ravenloft.
Okay, I actually do have one question. There we go. It's very
yes, for the product placement.
Yes. So like I said, Barovia, Solus, and all that stuff for the people that live there. Is that true of the other domains?
It varies.
It varies. Okay.
Yeah, it varies. Like I said, there are living, breathing, biological people that are born, live their whole lives, and die.
Yeah.
In the domains.
Yeah.
And never get out. And then sometimes, you know, you can cross the mist, which, that's what I was saying before. Yes, there's the Vistani, but even on occasion, the odd wanderer gets lost in the mist and comes out in a new place. And that's another reason why they're like quasi aware of each other, sort of, kind of. Yeah. But they are definitely more siloed. I would say definitely get Van Richten's guide, and definitely look at the domains. And pick one. You don't have to do some like massive like domain hopping story like I'm doing. You can just pick one and have your whole thing be there. And there's so many different kinds. Okay. All right. Minor spoiler. I really been keeping this to myself. But we just did the a bonus episode that's up on Patreon about this. So one of the domains. You know what? I can say this because they freaking posted the table of contents. So it's not on me now.
They did.
All right.
So one of the domains is a lightning rail from Eberron. It is the Sire 1313 that the day of the fall of Sire, they were trying to evacuate and didn't make it out, and they don't know it. That is the coolest thing.
Cool. Yeah. And the other thing that I still absolutely love is they have no idea what happened either.
They don't know.
They still didn't answer what happened, and I love that.
Yep. Nope. They still don't know. They still don't know. I answered ish what happened in my story. But again, canonically, no one knows, and they don't know. And it is the greatest tease that you're like, well, tell us what happened. And they're like, I don't know, because we think we got away. Yeah. So, highly recommended.
Let's just trust me, I'm hyped. I may have pre-ordered Van Richten's guide in 3 different places. So let's see what chat's been up to. By the way, if this is your first time watching this show, you can leave a question right now that I might be able to ask them if we have enough time. So let's see what we've got going on here. Let's see. Archiest, I think is how you say that. Vampires of the Mist was actually the first time I encountered the word elf as a kid. That's actually kind of really cool.
It is fun.
Let's see. Earl Grey Malkin, in the lore of the Forgotten Realms, is there a ridiculous number of evil people doing horrible things? It seems a bit random which ones get dark powers that the dark powers decide to imprison.
It's absolutely random. It doesn't make sense, and you don't know why. And they're from different places. Yeah, Aslan's from Greyhawk. Yeah, they're not all from the Forgotten Realms. His kingdom, original kingdom's Greyhawk. Yeah,
there you go. Mm-hmm. Dark Cyril,
and Lord Soth, homie, he's from Dragonlance in Silithus.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Dark Cyril says Baloth leading the charge to murder Alabaster Booty Clap. And if you don't get that joke, you can go find older episodes on YouTube or on our podcast feed.
Where Aaron hath blessed us. Yes. You know what it is? That's the other thing that has to happen in Baloth's domain. He has to be challenged to eternal combat against Alabaster Booty Clap and win and have no one know.
And not a single person know.
Yeah, like
everyone was looking at their phones the moment it happened.
When he actually is victorious. And they're like, oh,
this
what?
honestly makes me want to like dig into like Bailoff and like what is Bailoff's like deep core wound that we don't know about, like, because I'm like, no, there's got to be something more than I love all these, but what else? What's under that? But I don't know that that's a thing.
I'll ask Mark. I think we might be able to make that happen.
Well, Dylan, Code Entertainment's own.
Oh, hi, Dylan.
Has a suggestion: the endless pits of Bailoff. I don't know how to say his last name. Baratil. Dark Lord of the Colosseum. That's
right.
That's pretty cool.
That's absolutely.
Yep.
That's pretty freaking cool, Dylan. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Yep. Again, no profit, no one cares, and he can't rig the fights.
Sakritzi says, is there anything like Dr. Frankenstein in Domains of Dread?
Yes. You
can see he wants to say more, but he can't.
I will just say the domain of Lamortia. Yes.
Get hyped. Let's see. Chili Draws says, would you classify Ravenloft as a meat grinder adventure that's similar to a mega dungeon of Waterdeep Mad Mage or something different?
Different, but it can be. Again,
look up the Murder House.
Yeah,
don't do it.
The House of Lament, the introductory game that is the introductory adventure that is in the book that we did. We started it. Our session 0.5 for the Black Dice Society was the House of Lament, which we need to go back and finish. Now that I mentioned that,
that was an option on Patreon.
That was, but the people spoke. They chose the Ghost Train, and got a Ghost Train, gonna Ghost Train. It can be. Again, it depends on the domain. Falcovnia, where my players are right now, is definitely that. It's definitely that. They don't know it yet. But other ones not so much. Like Barovia is not that. Not really. You get into problems, but it is not this just meat grinder.
I think it works better as not a meat grinder because there was an old meme that I saw a long time ago that had Chris Perkins basically doing the like, oh no, and there it is, and it was essentially like killing your players' characters quickly on a meat grinder, and then underneath it was someone just like emotionally scarring them with every roll they make.
Well, like I very much could see how you could do a Ravenloft game in the style of like Doom.
Oh yeah.
Like very much that is still like very heavy combat. I mean, all things being equal, I think it's not a very heavy combat setting, but you could make it a very heavy combat setting.
Yeah.
If you wanted to. Yeah. Yeah.
Can't be happy.
I mean, that's really a great thing.
Can't be happy. That's really it. You can do anything as long as they don't enjoy it.
I love it. Let's see here. Turksir also had note to self: don't play a cleric in Ravenloft or do.
Yeah. Or do. Hey, is a cleric nothing other than a warlock with worse terms? Think about it.
Well, the other thing is, don't think that just you not being a warlock gets you out scot-free. I specifically love that in Curse of Strahd, they're like, if players cast these spells, here's what happens instead.
Yep. Yep. Well, because that's the power that Strahd has over Barovia. That like you again, and that's the sad irony of their situations, that they have such power they can intervene and stop gods.
Yeah,
and still can't solve their problem though. Yeah,
big mood.
Yeah. Yo.
Garhorse says it's a meat grinder for your emotions.
It's a meat grinder for your feels. That is true. It's a feels grinder.
Oh my god.
Let's see, what is this one?
You said so many excellent titles for this episode.
I know.
It's a feels grinder.
Oh, I know.
Series of dirty bubble. As long as they're not happy.
I was saving them all. We were off for a week, and they just been coalescing for you. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Let's see, Gamer Mech. I can't read truly horrific things. The imagery gets stuck in my head and won't leave. Talking, movies, etc. are fine. So it's just reading it. So it'd be interesting.
I can tell you why that is. Well, you say what you're going to say. I can tell you why though. But
I'm interested if that is like also like, because they say you can't read horrific things, but I wonder if in a Theater of the Mind game, if that's similar, because that is all imagery in your head and whatnot.
Well, it's all in how you describe it. You know, it's all because again, the reason why Aliens is a horror movie is what you don't see is always scarier. You will insert the worst thing. Like the same way that if I describe the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, that means something different to all of us. The moment I'm like, she's a 5'7" blonde that's athletic, you know, that's not a lot of people's jams immediately. So if your description leave that room for you to fill in awful, that's what makes it scarier.
Yeah.
You know?
I find reading it so much easier, but I think that's because my job is writing. So I'm more like, oh, I see how you did that.
Yeah.
Whereas a movie, I'm like, I think this is real. But
Yep.
if I were, into, directing or editing or plotting out lighting, I'd be like, oh yeah, look at that. The way they cut that.
Yep, how they did it and everything. Which, just as an aside, we mentioned Get Out earlier. Get Out would be an excellent Ravenloft campaign. An excellent Ravenloft campaign, up to and including the condition by which you can exit. Especially the alternate ending where he doesn't exit.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. So, yep.
If you haven't seen that movie,
I mean,
just
that's
oh my god.
It's honestly, that's Ravenloft, especially because there's the dread. He gets caught up in this mess. He's a fish out of water. He gets a little bit fighty,
Oh yeah,
little
bit fighty,
little bit fighty. Yeah,
may have used that improvised weapon skill.
I mean, and even the core premise. I mean, it's been a minute since Get Out came out, but I won't spoil it on the off chance you should see it. Even that core premise is a very Ravenloft premise.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my favorite thing about Ravenloft in general is that even if you don't make your own domain of dread, there are so many movies that you can take inspiration from to fit in there.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen people I haven't seen it yet because I'm really behind on my horror movies, but I've heard people Midsummer in
I haven't seen that, but
in Ravenloft would somehow work. So
sure, Pan's Labyrinth, anything creepy, anything spooky, it can range from spook to shrieking madness. The whole Lovecraftian mythos. I mean, that's what Ravenloft is built out of. Eldritch horror. Yeah.
My friend, Kate Alice Marshall wrote a book called Rules for Vanishing, which is a YA horror, which I highly recommend. And I just realized it is perfect for a Ravenloft campaign.
There you go.
Teenagers find a ghost road, basically.
100%.
On the road, there are rules. There are rules to surviving the road, and if you break the rules, as in a lot of horror movies, if you break the rules, you boned. Now I'm like, oh my god, Kate, can you run this?
There you go. Holla at your girl.
That'd be great. I totally missed this one. That was very early in the show from once again Codenames Entertainment very own Dylan. This was during the Avatar talk. This is what we're gonna end this episode on. Yeah, but think about how much better Avatar would have been if it took place in the domains of dread.
God.
The cabbage guy, it's all just severed heads.
That's it.
My head.
I feel like it already was a domain of dread for the cabbage guy. He's everywhere, he's omnipresent, and yet he loses the cabbages every time.
Oh my god, he was a Dark Lord.
He was a Dark Lord.
He just wanted to sell his cabbages, and everywhere he went, no.
Even in Korra, Cabbage Corp still suffered. Yeah, that's it. There's no escape. No escape.
That's beautiful. But that is going to be all the time we have for lore today. Erin, B-Dave, where can people find you and what awesome things are you working on?
You can find me on Twitter at Erin M. Evans, which you should keep an eye on, because I might have something fun to tell people on Friday.
Ooh.
I might have a little change to my bio there. You can also watch me on twitch.tv/Dungeon Scrawlers every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. where I play Cecilia, who is definitely not a warlock, but is entirely, chronomancy. Now you can listen to me on our podcast talking about dragons and shit. Available where all fine podcasts can be downloaded.
Indeed.
Although you can correct me because I don't actually know for sure what all that means.
It is on. If there's a podcast service that's not on and you want it on, yell at me on Twitter. I'll find it.
I would just like to point out now that undead pact warlocks can have Strahd as a patron. That's all I have to say. B. Dave Walters, I say words about things. You can find me with flawless product placement here and here on the Black Dice Society, Thursdays at 4. Which, if any of this seems interesting, it is a Ravenloft game. You can come and check us out, 4 o'clock Pacific. D&D, Twitch, and YouTube, in many other places wherever fine streaming content can be located. Also with these beautiful people on podcast. Just follow me on the tweetagrams at @BDaveWalters. I don't expect you to keep up with me. I barely can, and I'm there for all of it.
Again, you should post that schedule every week.
You know what's funny? I literally had a big schedule banner that I had for a while. It just changed so frequently, I couldn't keep it updated.
You can find me on the Difficulty Class podcast every Friday, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention in this episode that my co-host Allie Deichman was in my Ravenloft game and cried twice on the last session, and it was a freaking awesome game.
Mission accomplished.
I managed to kill her twice.
I told you, I rank my success as a DM and how quickly I can make people cry. Not because I draw power from their pain, which I do, but because if they're that emotionally engaged, something good is happening.
It's true.
See, I just cry so easily.
I'll take your laughter too. It's fine.
I do both. I laugh easy, I cry easy.
There you go. You can follow me on Twitter at the Treavor. There is an A hiding in there. Thank you to Jay for moderating the chat as always. You did a fantastic job and are doing a fantastic job with all of these extra viewers. So thank you very much. Thank you to Codename Entertainment for giving us a chance to talk about some D&D. And if you missed any part of this show or missed any of our previous shows, you can find them on our podcast feeds as well as our YouTube feeds. And this episode will be going up later today at 2 p.m. with an extra code. So if you want some more, things and stuff, we get an extra code on the podcast every week. Let's see. The scheduling is back to normal this week. So yeah, we got Champions of the Lore back this week. Bardic Inspiration is going to be back on Tuesday. The scripting hour, or the sketching hour, I don't know, scripting hour. Sketching hour is back on May 12th, and Griddle Champions is back on May 14th. So regularly scheduled shows are abound. So you're gonna have all the opportunities to have some entertainment and get some fun loot and stuff. Let's see. I think that is all the stuff that I got for this week. So yeah, until next week, Champions out.